Hey there, Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to the OCGFAM show to you, my YouTube buddies. What's going on with you? Let's talk about it in the comments. And speaking of the comments, let me show you this comment. It's from James Snell, and he says, Bob, you have increased Herc on the peppers per bloom phase. However, you have not met the 6:1 ratio of 10 milliliters of BK. Here should be at least 60 milliliters, 2 tablespoons instead of just 1, the 30 milliliters from the feed schedule. Yes? Yep. But you're right. It was not correct. I should have been doing 5 milliliters instead of 10. So this was purely a mental lapse. But let me show you this other comment. This one's from Jeff Stewart, and he says, a little confused about BK to Herc ratios given the feed chart and the discussion in the videos. The chart shows 5 milliliters in veg with lower than 6:1. For example, 5 milliliters of BK to 15 milliliters of Herc. Should that be increased from the introduction of BK? You also used 5 milliliters drench and 5 milliliters foliar at the same time, and it wasn't clear to me how much Herc or BK should be used. And the latest video appears that you used 10 milliliters of BK, which isn't reflected in the feed chart. Please clarify. As far as the 10 milliliters I used, that was just a mental lapse, like I said. But the other issue, let me show you what he's talking about here. So if you look at the chart here, it shows 5 milliliters per quart foliar from early vegetative to early flowering, but the Herc goes 5 milliliters, 10 milliliters, 15 milliliters, 30 milliliters. So slowly ramping up as you go and not fitting that 6:1 ratio. Then if you look again down here, once we get into mid-flowering, it suggests that we start using a drench and 15 milliliters of Bloom Khaos in mid-flowering and late flowering. But the Herc, if you look at that, it says 30 to 90 milliliters. Now, if you went to the top end of that, that would be 6:1, but then you get to late flowering, 30 to 60. Even at the top end, that's not enough. So what's the deal? Is the chart inconsistent? First of all, yes, the chart is wildly inconsistent because all the chart is an average of a poll that Nectar for the Gods did quite some time back where they went to a lot of their growers and said, hey, what do you use? And then they just took those numbers, averaged them out, and kind of threw them up here with a little, intelligent design from Scott of looking at it to see if anything looked out of whack. But for the most part, it's just an average. So, yeah, it's probably inconsistent. But in this particular instance, there is some rationale for why it's like this. Let's come back to the chart again. So first off, let's look at this issue of the 5 milliliters per quart all the way through here, and then the Herculean going up slowly. So we're taking 32 ounces of water, putting that into a spray bottle, and adding 5 milliliters into that small amount of water. That's a pretty concentrated mixture. But while it's very concentrated in here, it's really not that much on these plants because for all these, 6, 7 guys here, to totally douse these guys, I'm probably not going to use even down to here of this. So that's the reasoning there that when you're using the foliar that you're really, even though it says 5 milliliters here, not doing near that much on the actual plant. But what about in the root drench part? And let's just first talk about this mid-flowering where we got 30 to 90 to 15. So if you're at the top end at the 90, you're just fine. That's 6:1. But if you're at the 30 down there, what's the deal? Is that a contradiction? And I would say that yes and no. Yes, it's a contradiction because Scott says 6:1 and the chart says 30. The two do not match up. But that is what Scott says is a guideline that him and Frank have come up with that they think is a good number. But you may feel differently, and these people that put this chart together, this is just an average, they may have felt differently. It's hard to say. You have to find out and figure out what's best for you, for your genetics, for your personal style, for what you're doing. But I would say, go with the 6:1 with the 90. So, okay there, we're getting through this, but what about late flowering? If you look at the late flowering, it still says 15 milliliters root drench, but it only says 30 to 60. Now here in our garden, we're growing some peppers that it really doesn't matter, but if you're growing something in your garden that flowers and you go through just one growth cycle, you're going to want to be trailing off at the end to get everything you can out of that plant to get it to eat up all those nutrients to flush it out. And that's the thinking here with this, is that you're going to be trailing off toward the end to, get rid of all that stuff and have that plant just barely cross the finish line with not much left. So that's kind of a basic explanation. So go ahead and put more comments down in the comments as to any questions you might have to clarify that, and then we'll get Scott on here to talk about it in more depth. That's the show for today. I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow. The OCGFAM Show.